Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and yes, I am back, finally returned. I do appreciate all the support and well wishes I got from you guys now that my new baby is here. We're doing very well. Mommy's doing very well. Everyone's healing up nicely. Baby's doing well, putting on weight and all that other good stuff. Appreciate the gifts some of you guys did send for the baby. That's awesome. I really do appreciate that. You guys are some awesome supporters of the channel. Really gotta say I appreciate it. So we're going to jump right back into Fields of Fire. I had a lot of questions about this game, a lot of comments. You guys have been very interactive as we've been working our way through this. And I was thinking about this while we were at the hospital, and the game was just at the back of my mind the whole time I was gone. And it wasn't anything like I was concerned about my next move or what I'm getting ready to do or how I'm fighting the Japanese. It's just the concept of the game itself. And for those of you who don't know, right? Oh, and let me mention real quick, you guys might hear a low hum in the background. I got my fan going. Sorry, I live in the South and it's summer and it's hotter than hell here. So even with a house with air conditioning, I got to have a little fan going because otherwise it just heats up in the room with all the lighting that I've got going on. But I was thinking about the game and just mulling it over. And for you who don't know, I did serve in the Marines. I was wounded while I was overseas by a landmine that caused a brain injury that affects my memory. Sometimes it's, wholly there and I have no issues. And sometimes, I just can't remember shit. I've got CRS. It depends. So I try to keep that in mind as like a little buffer when I'm playing games, especially like this, where there's a whole lot of nuance and a whole lot of detail that I have to keep track of. And I was mulling over just the difficulty of it. And I'm like, okay, how much of this is my own inherent possible issues when I forget things like, contact or lines of fire, things like that. Smaller little just details of the game. And how much of it is the game itself being complex and having a lot of just minor details that you have to take in, try to keep track of. And I'm like, is this me or is this the game? And a lot of the comments make me think this leans more towards the game than my own personal issues that I have to deal with. And I'm not hating on the game itself. I was mentioning in one of the comments, someone was talking about, the difficulty of the game. That this game isn't bad per se. I like the concept of the game, and I agree wholeheartedly that this game displays small unit leadership in a way that very, very few games have ever done. I actually think it's one of the best, if not the best, at displaying the difficulties of communication and how you should work that, how the chain of command works in dispersing the commands down through the company and how it's going to work, radio and telephone and pyrotechnics and whatever you happen to be using. I think the game does very well at that aspect. There's just a whole lot of it. This game is going to be for a very specific type of person. It's going to be for someone who likes to get their nails in, likes to get really dug in and have a meaty experience, because there is so much that you have to remember. You have to keep track of your contact level. You have to keep track of your visibility level depending on the, daylight, nighttime, or is it foggy, or, things of that nature. You have to keep track of the modifier that the terrain cards have, the cover for your units, what's going on with the different volumes of fire, because you have multiple volumes of fire going at these guys, but you're only going to use one of them. There's just so much detail involved with it. So if you're not someone who wants that, if you want a game you can sit down and read the rule book and you're going to have a firm grasp of it, then this one's probably not for you. If you want something that you do have to work your way through and you're not going to have it in the first go round or even the second go round, but it is going to be a deep experience, then yeah, you can give it a shot. You just have to keep that in mind, that it's deep. There's no other way to put it. There's so many little minor details. And I don't want to put someone off of the game because they think, oh, it's too hard for me. But I want to be upfront with you guys that there is a lot and you are going to make mistakes. It's just going to happen. If you're okay with that, though, don't let that put you off that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to take and put down your directions of fire. Speaking of which, these cards that I have originally put down, PDFs, their primary direction of fire, they shouldn't have had those yet, because the line of sight only goes orthogonally or diagonally. So this card can't fire at that card. You're going to go straight or you're going to go in the diagonal. So keep that in mind. I don't know. I want to be upfront with you guys. And like, part of the way I play this, for those of you who don't know on this, I don't script any of my games. All right. The very specific reason I do that is I want you guys to get as good a grasp and see as much as you can how the game's actually going to work when someone's actually sitting down and really playing through it. So I don't rig the deck before I start playing it. I just shuffle it up and deal. That prevents me from being able to script it and actually have a script that I'm going on and know ahead of time. So that's why sometimes you guys see a lot of chops, because I have to stop and figure out and make sure, am I doing this right or that? And that's not just this game. That's every game that I have to do. But I think that does give you guys the best, picture of what the game is that I'm trying to represent. All right, so let's get back into it. A couple things. I already touched on the fact that the PDFs only go straight lines, so make sure you guys do keep track of that. And someone else asked in the comments about the orders, and maybe I didn't explain it clear enough, but there is activated. Let me grab the rule book. In your friendly command phase, you have your activation, and that's when you have been activated from on high. A higher HQ has activated that HQ, and you get to activate and draw commands here, and that's when you use big number. If you're using initiative, that's when you use small number. So let me grab a card. We've got big number and small number. You see 4 is our big number. Hold it for the camera. And 3 is our small number. So just as another example, just to make sure I'm on point with it, if our company HQ here is, it fills on in, yep, is in command with higher, in command with battalion, then he gets to activate in the friendly command phase. That means he gets to use big number on the card, and the way they're showing the chain of command in this game is the fact that he could use those commands. Say he drew this one and had 4, he could issue out 4 commands with units that he has communication with, obviously, down to the small units if he wanted to. But that's not efficient. It's more efficient to issue orders to your commanders, to your HQs, and have them control their own units. And that's the way the military actually operates. So the commander, the HQ, is going to take and issue orders down to the platoon level, and those platoon commanders will draw their own cards, and they'll use big number when they're activated by a higher command. All right, and that's going to work with any of your staff, like your XO or your gunny or your first sergeant. They get big number when they're activated by a higher command. It's always small number when you're not and you're activated in the initiative segment of the game. All right, so I'm trying to break that down dummy style as best I can. If someone has told you, if one of the other higher up HQs has told someone to do something, has spent an order to do so, big number. If they haven't, then small number. Okay? That's the basic that I can break it down for you guys. Now, I'm wanting to try to show off at least every little aspect of this game, so we're going to play until we've at least covered every little tidbit. We're not going to be able to get too much into the vehicles. We'll have to play into the next turn to show you guys that, because where we are at currently, we are in our mutual combat phase, and we just completed the evaluate potential contact markers. That's what we did on our previous turn when we revealed all the enemy units, all the A markers that were across here. We revealed those and put enemy units on the board. We ended up having 3 squads and 3 tanks that popped up here and here. Well, spread out between those 2 locations. Now we are in our combat effects segment, and we're going to start with if we had any pinned vehicles or infantry units, we would remove those pin markers. We don't because we're just starting out with it. For each infantry unit on a card. So we're not resolving vehicles. I'm following right along with the sequence of play here. So we're only going to do the volume of fire, resolving our volume of fire for our infantry. Our vehicles are not going to take and resolve that. Remember, underneath all of these moved fire markers are our Sherman tanks, and then they have some Type 95s as well. But we're not going to worry about hits on them yet. That, again, is done in our mutual vehicle aircraft phase. So we'll have to do that on the following turn. That'll probably be in the next video, depending on how long this takes. For each infantry that's on a card with a volume of fire marker, so we have a squad here and a squad here that are both underneath volumes of fire. And, of course, the ones that are underneath volumes of fire are the ones that have exposed markers with no cover, so that sucks. And we also have their infantry squads here and here. Well, this one actually, is not under volume of fire, just the ones over here for now. I'll shift fire in the following turn to go after these guys. But these guys, so we've got one Japanese squad here that's under a heavy volume of fire, some crossfire, speaking of which I did forget to put that down. If you have two separate cards firing onto a single card, you will have the crossfire volume of fire in addition to your other volumes of fire. So we do have that as well. It doesn't say, and I was looking, you guys let me know if I missed this somewhere, whether to resolve enemy or friendly first. So we'll just resolve here and go across and see what happens with them. So we have resolve any flame attacks, don't have any, and determine the NCM. That's your net combat modifier. They do have, let me grab our player aid here. They do have the infantry combat for the player aid, and it kind of lists down the things that you're going to look for. Your volume of fire marker, which is, again, only one. So if we take this example here, we have, which squad is this? Third squad of the 3rd platoon, and they are under an exposed marker, so that's a -2, but the volume of fire marker we're looking at, they are taking small arms fire and automatic fire. Small arms is +0, automatic fire is -1. In this game, the negative number is better, all right, for doing damage. So you're going to take the, for saying this in a dumb way, the largest negative number. So the lower the number is the one you're going to use. -1 being the lowest, that's going to be the volume of fire marker that we're going to use. It doesn't matter how many small arms markers that we have here, we're not worrying about it. And again, the only reason that I have multiple volumes of fire, because you don't technically have to put those down, the ones that aren't going to matter. I do that, and it does recommend in the rulebook when you're starting out to do that, put a volume of fire marker for each unit that's conducting their fire, just as kind of a mnemonic device to help you remember who's shooting where. So I've got, these squads shooting up at these Japanese squads, and it's so many different. Oh, and I actually have to remove some of these. I forgot that, since there's only 2 now instead of 4. But that way, it's a mnemonic device to remember, okay, there's 2 squads shooting up here. That's why I've got 2 small arms. There's 2 tanks. That's why I've got 2 heavies to worry about. Okay, so we add all these together. We've got -1 for our automatic. So we've got that one to worry about. Status of the defending unit. Their cover, the cards cover, if they're pinned, terrain, exposed marker, all that type stuff is what we're going to add into it next. If we look at this unit, their card terrain is a +2. So right now we've got a -2 for exposed, +2 for the terrain. Those two negate each other out. That brings us back down to just -1 for our volume of fire. So right now we're at -1 for our modifier. look at visibility, and this is where you're looking over here for your daylight or fog or whatever else is going on with that. For us, we have daylight. That's a 0, so it's not going to affect anything. And we don't have illumination or anything else affecting it. Any other markers that can potentially affect it are things like concentrated fire, sniper, crossfire, stuff like that. So we don't have any of those to worry about. So when we look at our NCM, our net combat modifier for this squad that we're working with right now, it is a -1. Once you figured out what that number is, you're going to take and draw one of your cards, and you're going to look to see whether or not they get hit. So let's draw a card. We'll flip this over, and looking at -1 is a pin. Well, it's not the worst that could happen, but it's all right. So we will get ourselves a pinned marker and place it on them right there. Show you guys if it'll zoom in. There it is. So this gets placed on them as well. They are now pinned, and I'm bumping my camera. But there's something else we have to keep track of, okay? Since these guys are now pinned, their volume of fire going up over here is changed to a pinned volume of fire, okay? Actually, I think that's what I grabbed. I think that's the pinned volume of fire marker, not the pinned marker. Give me 1 second. Let me check. Okay, so just to show you guys, because this can get a little confusing, I had to go check just to make sure. The volume of fire they're putting out now is pinned, okay? So for this squad, 3-3, their volume of fire changes from small arms, which is 0, to +2, which is worse. Remember, lower number is better. And we put the pinned marker on them, which is signifying the fact that they're ducked down, they're taking fire. So, and actually gives a modifier for them, which does help them out because, hey, they're putting their heads down. So we'll place that there, and I'm going to switch out one of these small arms fires for a pinned marker. And it's not going to affect us for this combat because it is conducted simultaneously. So nothing would change anyway. Even if the small arms was already there, they would have been resolved for small arms. But there's heavy on there anyway, so that doesn't matter. Actually, I think I pulled off heavy. I did pull off heavy. Let me switch that, and we'll grab this one. Okay, so got to keep track of those markers. Now, we don't have to worry about anything else. Had this been a hit, then we would have drawn another card and looked down here at the bottom of the card where it says hit effect, and it would tell you, depending on their experience level, which again, for all my units, we're just going with line, that what type of damage they would have incurred. So let's place this here. Now we will go to this unit. They should be the same. Automatic is the fire, +2, -2, no visibility effects, no other crossfires. So they are also a net -1. So let's draw a card for them, see what happens. Net -1. No! It's a hit. Son of a bitch. Okay, so this squad took a hit. Now we have to draw and see what happens. When we flip this over for a line, they get a P, and I have to look real quick to remember what that is. I think that's paralyzed. All right, I was looking to see if I could find it in a player aid somewhere, and I could not find it. So here in the rule book is where it states C is casualty, P is paralyzed team, L is litter team, and F is fire team. So we take our squad here, which has 4 steps to it. We're going to reduce a step. We're down to 3 steps and place that back down. They have lost a step to a paralyzed team. So we will take and grab a paralyzed marker, and we will place that there with them. So that's basically what happened is one of their groups got, or one of the steps is paralyzed now. And that step can be reformed. Possibly, I can't remember off the top of my head if paralyzed can go back to fire team. I think they can go back to fire team. Okay, backside is a casualty. I do believe a paralyzed step can go back to a fire team. I'll have to look to be sure, but I know a fire team can get reintegrated back into the squad, so I'll have to check just to be sure. But I do think that paralyzed, I know casualties can't, but paralyzed I do believe can. Litter team I know can't. We'll have to take a look. But that's what we've got. We're down to 3 steps. We've lost a step to paralyzed, so that's an issue. Now we have to resolve our guys up here at the top. We have this squad of Japanese that are under an exposed marker. Let me pull all this down so you guys can see that a little easier. Make sure it's in camera. Yeah. Okay, so when we're looking for them, doing their net combat modifiers, we're going to do the same thing that we did for these guys, right? Again, we're just doing it for infantry. So we're looking at the volume of fire. The heaviest volume of fire they're taking is heavy, so that's -3. If we look at the exposed marker, that makes it -5, +0 for the terrain that they're in. So not getting anything, we're at total of -5, and then they're getting crossfire on top of it. So that brings them to a -6, actually, which I think is the worst that they can have. No visibility, no other markers are going to affect it. So, and yes, crossfire does get added in to one of the basic volumes of fire. So you can see that when we look over here at the other, like, all this other crap that we're adding together. So, and they don't have any cover. So -6 is our total. Let's draw a card for the Japanese and see what happens with them. I'm willing to bet it's going to be a hit. Yeah, they're definitely hit. I think -4 is probably the lowest that you can go, and it's +6 that's the highest that you can go. So they take a hit. We will do the same thing. Their line experience. Let's draw a card. And for a line, they get CL, so casualty and litter team. I do believe they're only going to suffer one of those, though. Let me make sure. Nope, they are going to get affected by both, because if the unit that's hit by it only has 1 step, then you just use the first letter. So we are going to use both letters. So that means they lose 1 unit to a casualty and 1 unit to a litter team. Let me grab those out real quick. Okay, so I've laid out across my hand basically what happened to that squad. On the right, you see what the squad originally was. It had 3 steps. 2 of those steps were taken down. 1 was taken into a paralyzed unit, and 1 was turned into a little, not paralyzed, excuse me, I had it wrong side. Casualty. Doing that wrong. 1 was turned into a casualty, which is what the red cross is. 1 was changed into a litter team, which left only 1 step. This unit doesn't have 1 step side. They flip it over, they go to the 2-step, and then if only 1 step is remaining, it becomes the generic fire team. So fire team left unaffected, and then litter team and casualty. So that's what happened to the Japanese. That's actually a pretty good result for us. Wounded up that squad. Plus, that reduced their range. Their range right now is only close instead of long like they were. So I can remove this small arms fire down here. Doesn't really help too much because they're already under the heavier fire from the tanks anyway. I move that back up and put these guys back under their exposed marker. There's so many little markers. Now you guys can see like how much little detail you've got to keep track of. There's just a buttload of markers. And yes, I do have extra markers with the extra volumes of fire because there doesn't need to be as many volumes of fire on the board. But again, it helps you mnemonically. And if you are new to this game, I would absolutely recommend doing that, at least for your first few rounds, just to keep track of who's firing where, because it's an easy thing to lose track of if you've only got the heaviest fire being annotated. So we're good. We have resolved all of our infantry combat. Okay, so I went and checked something just to be able to let you guys know. Paralyzed team can be rallied back up. You can take and rally units back up into their original. It goes something like paralyzed to litter to fire team to the good order unit. The only thing is if you have a unit that loses its original counter, like our Japanese squad here, that their counter was taken off the board. Once it's taken off the board, it can't be put back onto the board. The most you can do is get it back to like a generic fire team. So let's say they had paralyzed teams up here or litter teams, whatever, instead of the casualties. They could rally, if the enemy rallied, back up to fire teams, but they could not rally back to the point that they had their original 3-step squad on the board now that this counter has been taken off. Same goes for my units. So let's go back to our sequence of play. Looking at it, we have completed our combat effects segment. Now we go to our cleanup and any pyrotechnics, illumination, exposed, moved fire, concentrated fire, grenade, and grenade miss. And concentrated fire is different from crossfire. All right, 2 different things. You can choose to concentrate your fire. Crossfire just happens. All those markers down here are going to be removed. You evacuate casualties from casualty collection points, and we don't have any casualties, and their casualty isn't in a casualty collection point. And if it's a defensive mission, remove any unresolved PC. We're not in a defensive mission, which some people were talking about that this mission should be a defensive, and I kind of get it and kind of disagree at the same time. It's still technically an offensive because you're pushing forward. It's just you're resolving the counterattack from the Japanese forces. So we're still technically attacking because we're coming from our staging area and attacking up into the Japanese territory. They're just counterattacking into our troops. And our only goal for this mission, at least, is just to hold this first line here. All right, so let's take and remove our exposed markers. We got one here. Does this guy have one? Yeah, everybody's got exposed markers. Get rid of those. That'll definitely help us out. Make our guys less likely to get chewed up. And this is what I was talking about wanting to get the guys to infiltrate forward, because you don't get those exposed markers if you infiltrate forward. Plus, if you send smaller units forward, like just a step or a fire team, or as I did, the whole damn squad, then you have less people exposed originally when you're just kicking off the potential contact markers. So you have less people who are going to suffer from that. But keep in mind, infiltration isn't a guarantee. If you infiltrate, you do have to draw cards for that, and it might potentially not work. So we've got another exposed over here for the enemy, and one more exposed over here. This is something else that kind of irritates me about the game. You're constantly having to slide the cards back in place because they are just sliding around. I mean, I do have a slick tablecloth on my table, but a little irritating. Oh, and we've got to get rid of our moved fire markers. I'll just set these over to the side because we are going to place them down again for our tanks on the following turn, and we are going to have to deal with the enemy's tanks moving fire. Okay, we've covered a good chunk of the game just running through one whole turn. We've completed our first turn completely, Fields of Fire. We made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I hope this has been a learning experience for you guys to help you understand the specifics of the game and the differences and all that other good stuff. Now, there is some stuff that you guys did not get to see, so we're going to play into the next turn so you guys can see some of that, which would be higher HQ events. Remember, those don't start until turn 2. And then we've got some vehicle combat that hasn't been resolved yet just because of where it happens in the order, the sequence of play. So we'll play through the next turn, let you guys see what happens with that. I'll try to go a little faster. There's just so many details, so much nuance, and I'm trying to answer all the questions and address all the stuff from the comments for you guys to help those who are trying to work their way through this game at home as well. So I'm going as fast as I can, guys, but I'm trying to give you all the information that I can. We'll probably have another 1 to 2 videos and probably a final thoughts on Fields of Fire 2. So you guys do have that to look forward to. But that's going to be it for me on this one. As always, you guys put down in the comments any questions, concerns, complaints, gripes, bitches, moans, all that good stuff that you have about this episode, and we'll pick it up with the next one. All right, that's going to be it for me. You guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.